Good morning, all you beautiful people all across Asia and even some in the United States, I believe, and to our friends in the Middle East and everywhere else. Welcome to the Selah Webinar Series. It's We're looking forward to our very last of this series, and hopefully we will, and I'm quite sure when you find out who our guest is, we will leave this webinar with a bang. But maybe before I invite him to lead us in a time of worship or devotion, maybe I should just describe him. Oh, I'm good morning, by the way. I'm Joseph Lee, or Pastor Joe, or whatever you. Yeah, some of you know me as Doc Joe, but I'm send you greetings from Singapore Bible College. But enough about that. I want to describe this person. He's described as so gifted in writing beautiful music, music that is truly magical. Some says he's an influencer of choirs in the US and throughout the world. For others, some have described him as dangerous because he's full of spine-tingling moments. Utterly dangerous, so beware. His credentials are very envy-causing. So beware of that too, because he's a publisher, he's an educator, he's a pianist, he's an editor, and a world-famous composer. But for those of us who have met him, we know that he's a very proud dad, and he's also a very proud husband, a son, and a friend. He's humble-hearted, and yet he's very, 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 very proud of his recent accomplishments of planting that fantastic landscape water garden and lush greenery. And I don't know how he does this, but he actually invites the crickets and the frogs to come and reside in his garden. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Dan Forrest. Clap! Yay!
Well, that was one of the most fun introductions ever.
Well, welcome, Dan, and if I may, what a pleasure to have you here. I know that you tore away from some family events this evening for you. It's 9 o'clock your time, but I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and over to you. Why would you like to say something?
Oh, there's so many things. Yeah. That was the most fun introduction I think I've ever heard. So thank you for all that. Yeah, nice. Maybe it's just because it's late here and it's early there. You're just getting wound up, and I'm just.
Well, it's the coffee.
Yeah, there you go. I need to grab some, I guess. Yeah, I'm so glad to reconnect with whoever all is here. I guess we're not seeing the whole shooting match, but that's fine. I made so many good friends when I was over there before, and it'll be nice to connect here, whether visibly or in the chat or whatever we're doing. It's all great. It's been a crazy time since I saw you all a year and a quarter ago or so.
Yes.
And so many things have changed and kind of evaporated or been yanked out from underneath our feet. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, some things have grown, like my garden. So there. And when I was there,
I'm so happy for you.
I took every opportunity, as Dr. Lee knows, to go to the Singapore Botanical Gardens. And I mostly hung out in the fragrance garden. And then I planted a bunch of those things in my backyard. And I just wandered all over there. And I mean, that's the closest thing to like an Eden paradise I've seen gardening wise. So I have a little taste of it here, maybe. So if you all come visit the States sometime, you can walk around my little botanical garden for 5 minutes, and it'll be over, but it'll be fun. So
it looks wonderful. I think you're going to take longer than 5 minutes. Let me jump in here, and I'm looking at some of the names who are joining us, at least here in the Zoom platform. We've got people from Indonesia. Some of them have actually sung your compositions and loaded it up online. We've got friends from, of course, Singapore. We've got friends from Malaysia, Philippines, yes, and so it's quite a widespread here. We've got somebody even from Korea. who is here joining us right now. So good morning, everyone. It's so nice to have you join us. And Thailand, we've got someone from Thailand as well, Jean Chang, who was with us in our previous series. Uh, and of course, Dr. Yap sends her apology. She's got classes right now, but we've got Beverly Shangguang, and we've got Noemi, who is also here, and I see many other names. But yeah, it's so great to see you. And for Facebook guys, I'm sorry, Noemi, who's on the other side of the screen, is just keeping me tabs with some of the questions that you have. So we're gonna go through a devotion, and then we're gonna talk about stuff like Dan's garden and everything else that he's growing, both in his backyard and also in his heart and mind. And we see what's going to blossom there. That's exciting. And then what we will do is that we will open it up to you all to ask questions, because I think you all would love to get to know him. But then, as we were discussing, I was just thinking, would you be able to lead us in a simple devotion, just for us to begin our day and for you to almost end yours?
Yeah, sure. This is evensong for me and morning canticles for you.
Yes.
Yeah. I have just a little article that I want to read to you all to try to encourage you, and then just some thoughts that grow out of that. So I won't get preachy or be long, but I hope I'll be able to encourage you. So this is from a little book that Pearl Shankwan gave me, actually, Music is Prayer by Tom Traeger. Such a beautiful little book. I'll hold it up there long enough so that you can write down the title and maybe look for a copy online sometime. Tom Traeger is a theologian, seminarian, flautist, and organist, and perhaps best known for writing amazing hymn texts and lyrics for songs. So kind of a Renaissance man of theology and the arts. And he collected these writings in a little book. And the one I want to just read, story time with Dan here, is called When the World Falls Apart. He writes, "If you were to look through the door of my study, you would know at a glance that I am well acquainted with the chaos monster." Somebody else scary, like you were saying, right? "Books are piled upon books, papers on papers, stacks on stacks on the desk, the filing cabinet, the floor, and the couch. The chaos monster is always threatening to get the upper hand. What about you? Sooner or later, most of us do battle with the chaos monster, if not in our study, then simply in the course of living. We think we have our day organized and know when and where we've got to be, and then suddenly a text message comes, or the phone rings, or the computer dings with an emergency that we never foresaw. Most of us are adept at dealing with the minor intrusions of the chaos monster, but there are other eruptions that shake the foundations of our being. The relationship we assumed would last a lifetime comes to a bitter end. We lose the job we love and have had for years, or a beloved friend dies. As if personal crises were not enough, the chaos monster also wreaks havoc with nations and with this planet. Systems break down, political compromise fails, violence spreads, solid ground trembles." And this was written many years ago, not recently. "What do we do when the world falls apart? Our ancient forebears knew all about this chaos monster. It was a major figure in many of their accounts of the creation of the world. They had various names for this monster: Tiamat, Rahab, or even Leviathan. Sometimes when these lives were violently disrupted, they would cry out to God and recall how God had vanquished the chaos monster at the beginning of all things. Consider, for example, Psalm 74. Enemies have destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. At the upper entrance," that's a quote of scripture, "they hacked the wooden trellis with axes. Then with hatchets and hammers, they smashed all its carved work. They set your sanctuary on fire. They desecrated the dwelling place of your name, bringing it to the ground. This destruction takes down more than wood and stone. It topples the house of meaning in the human heart, for there is no one around who can interpret what has happened." The psalmist goes on, "There is no longer any prophet, and there is no one among us who knows how long. How can we deal with devastation this great?" In the midst of this fierce lament, the psalmist turns to a hymn that recalls how God conquered the chaos monster at the beginning of all things. "You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the dragons in the water. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. The Hebrew word for divided is the same word Moses uses when he raises his staff to part the Red Sea. In one word, the poet brings together the conquest of primeval chaos and political oppression. But the hymn does not simply recount what God accomplished in the past. The poet goes on to celebrate how creation still belongs to God. Yours is the day, yours also the night. You established the luminaries and the sun. You have fixed all the bounds of the earth. You made summer and winter. In the midst of chaos, the poet sings a hymn. The hymn does not overcome the chaos. The poet briefly returns to his lament in the conclusion of the psalm, but the hymn stabilizes the poet's shaken heart by putting it in touch with the rhythms and structures of God's creation. I wonder how many people contending with the chaos monster have come to concerts, services, recitals, and found the music like the hymn in the midst of the psalm. It does not vanquish the chaos monster, but the pulse and timbre of the music put people in touch with the rhythms and structures of creation that belong to God and that resonate in the heart, providing them with a renewed sense of divine presence and the strength to endure when the world falls apart.
Wow.
That's such a beautiful little article, and you would almost think that he had written that last month or sometime in this year 2020 that we're all bemoaning, right? But I love the beautiful way that he ties in how music speaks to us in times of uncertainty or outright chaos. I love the idea that this psalm or our hymn or our music doesn't necessarily vanquish the chaos monster. You know, he's not overselling it or offering a glib, easy solution like, oh, we'll just sing a song and then it'll all be fine.
That's
no,
right.
I mean, but he's giving an honest take and pulling straight from scripture that music is a beautiful gift that puts us in touch with the way things are supposed to be at a time when things are not the way that they were originally intended to be. It gives us a little glimpse towards what Eden was like and what a new heavens and a new earth with a beautiful garden will be like, you know. It stabilizes us because beauty connects us with the source of beauty, and it points us to stabilizing truth, especially as believers, as we sing scriptural and spiritual truth. So I think that's a big part of my role as a musician in this world right now, whether it's me trying to minister to Christian friends or me connecting with people who have a different worldview or don't share my faith. In all of those places, I want to share that kind of God and that kind of beauty that contain that chaos monster.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dan. I'm just wondering, are you comfortable leading us in prayer just to start off the session and to remind us again of how do we hear the rhythm and structure of God's creation in His hand in the midst of the chaos monster still not defeated, because many of us are struggling even as you speak. Are you able? Would you mind leading us?
Of course,
briefly?
certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Pray. Father, thank you for this time together. Thank you for this technology that enables us to connect literally on completely opposite sides of the world. And thank you for your son, who is our brother and our friend and our advocate and our intercessor, who knows our pain and our struggle and our weakness and was tempted in all points like we are. Thank you for your spirit, who you've provided to us to be so many things. And one of those chief things is our comforter at a time when we need comfort. Thank you for music. Thank you for beauty, for art that puts us in touch with these rhythms and tones of your creation that enables us to say more than we could with just words themselves, but enables us to communicate on a so much deeper level, certainly to our emotions and to our spirits, and in ways that all the different parts of our beings come together that we can't even fully explain. And yet you let us dabble with this beautiful and powerful thing, and thereby be such a great blessing to people. And we know that you use these labors of our hands as musicians, and you accomplish exactly what you will with them. And so we commit ourselves to be used by you to tame the chaos monster, or to to provide what people need when the world seems to be falling apart. And lastly, we thank you that we have something deeper as Christian musicians that enables us to not look solely to music or just to rely on feeling good because the notes were pretty, but we understand who is behind that and where this came from and where it is going. We know the one from whom and through whom and to whom are all things, including this musical vocation that we enjoy.
Amen.
So thank you for all the good gifts and all the ways that you've provided for us. And I pray that this time now together would just be a great encouragement for people, that you would lift up those who are downhearted, that you would strengthen the weak, that you would comfort those who are mourning, and that you would provide for us in all the ways that we need it, as you have promised to and always do. Thank you for Dr. Lee and his leadership there at SBC, and for this opportunity to put all of these things together. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Dan. That's precious. I'm going to call you Dan, and you're going to call me Joe.
Okay, good. There's this Asian respect culture thing, right? And I didn't want to.
Oh, yeah. Respect comes in various ways, but thank you very much, though. That's what we love about you. You have embraced everything that you have understood about us here in Asia, and we feel no divide when it comes to you. So that's why I want to affirm you and say, yeah, we appreciate that so much. But it's Joe. Anyway.
I could call you worse.
Not when we're on the air. Thank you. Okay. I'm just wondering whether we've got friends who are trying to just say hello again. We've got friends from Seremban. Hello there, South Korea, Bangkok. Of course, friends from Kuwait, Bandung. With everyone, I think, from all the expanse of east to west Indonesia. I can't seem to get any comment going in the website the Facebook thingy, but I think Noemi would let me know if there's anything I need to act on and to answer. Then why don't you explain to us at least what's happening to your side? How's your family? Are you all safe? What's the pandemic like for your city, your town? Give us an idea.
Yeah. Our family has been fine. First of all, we haven't had any trouble. Honestly, this may sound a little kooky, but we had the strangest flu-like thing that just wouldn't let go, that went through our family back in November and December, which is a little earlier than most places, but then reports have come out that they found it in France back in October. I was in the Netherlands in early November. I don't know. We haven't had any testing that's widely available yet here, so we don't know. We almost sort of hope that maybe we had something like it early on, that we've already dealt with it. I don't know. That's probably wishful thinking. But there hasn't been anything too close to us. No. I'm in South Carolina, which is one of the top probably 5 hotspot states right now in America. Wow. So yeah, our like local healthcare officials have come out and said, like, if you're in a group of 25 people or more, there's a 99% chance that somebody in that group is infected or has been infected, and you just got to not do this, So I think for us, it's been kind of a roller coaster. Things first started back in March, and we all just kind of hid a little bit for a few days trying to figure out what was going on. Then we realized we needed to take it seriously. So everybody just retreated, everything, shut down more. And then ever since, I don't know, probably like early May or so, things have just been really roller coaster-ish. Depending on where you are in the US, some people are just, you've probably seen pictures of people just going down to the beach and all having their big parties and whatever. And then you have other places that are, like tearing their hair out, seeing that. And I think, honestly, it's hard to understate the impact of American individualism on all of this. Americans are so
we scratch our heads and wonder as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you get it.
We get it. Yeah. don't understand.
Yeah, we don't have that mentality of how do we all function together in society? How do we, I mean, maybe it's that we have so much space, we're all just spread out, we get to do our own thing. So I think that's kind of part of it. We don't have to get into all that, I'm sorry. But for
No,
whatever
that's
reason,
fine. That's fine. I'm just thinking about what our friends from India, I mean Vietnam. We've got friends from Vietnam. They seem to have been doing very well. But my heart goes out to India and some parts of
yeah,
Indonesia that are going through a rough time. Uh, so that roller coaster is real. Describe to us what happened in the church. How do you guys respond? And I noticed even in your demeanor, in what you spoke about just now, what resonated in your heart was that people are going through very uncertain times. They have what the writer talked about, the chaos monster, eruptions, almost a desecration of God's house of meaning.
yeah.
How did you go through that kind of up and down also, uh, and give us an idea?
Like specifically from our church perspective.
Church perspective, or you can take it as wide as you want to. Yeah.
Yeah. The other weird thing for America is just that the whole thing got politicized. So unfortunately, people, whatever their leaning is, they tend to lean one way or the other on how they think about all this based on their political party, which is
You're
the
right.
most ridiculous. I mean, we need to do what's best for humanity and for loving
Right.
our neighbor, not what serves our political agendas. And it's probably equally bad on both sides. I don't know. Trying not to be too biased one way or the other there, but it just shouldn't be. We should be just taking care of each other and not, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just been complicated even from a church perspective, because in our church we have people who lean one way politically and who lean the other way politically, and that's good because it shows that the gospel is transcending all of that and
Okay.
doesn't sink to political stuff, but it's
Right.
above
Right.
all that. It supersedes
Right.
it all. But at the same time, people have very strong feelings then about whether we should be meeting inside or whether we should be meeting outside, or whether masks are helpful or whether they're a tool of the government that's coming to take away our liberties, or something that you guys would probably all just scratch your heads and be like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. So yeah,
We didn't think your president was that strong and powerful to even defeat a virus, but well, he started wearing masks, and so we take a few steps back, don't we? I think in Asia we don't deal with that, but we do have the same kind of tension where some people say, "Where's your faith? God is bigger than the virus," kind of issue, and
yeah.
others are saying, "Let's be responsible." So, in some ways, we are similar.
So
Wow.
we're trying to serve our people, but also lead them. And it's a
Yeah.
tricky balance of trying to understand where they are and accommodate people's varying levels of comfort or fear, not fear, but just wise carefulness, and yet at the same time taking a leadership role, not just following public opinion, but saying, here's what we think is best to keep us all safe. So we've been
Yeah.
doing a lot of outdoor services, which has been great.
Oh,
Much
tell
less
us
risk.
about that. We cannot imagine doing outdoors. It's just too hot.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in the 90s here. So what is that? Probably like 32, 33.
Less. Oh, yeah, 30, 30s. That's about us. Yeah, yeah. That's
So we
about
have our service at 8:30 in the morning in the
okay.
shade.
In the
We get it out of the
I'm
way,
not.
and then we're all very sweaty, and we run home and take
Oh,
a
really?
shower. But it's worth it to be able to worship together and not have some risk. Just this past week, we had our first indoor service. We had one room where people had to wear masks to enter and to exit and during any singing. And then we had another room where masks were required the whole time.
Wow.
So that just gives people some choice. If you're the kind of person that says, I want to worship and I hate this mask, okay, we're still asking you to do certain things to protect your neighbor and yourself, frankly.
Yeah.
But you can come in if you want. We have this other room that's safer because everybody's got a mask and nobody's doing anything. And of course, they're all distanced. And then for people that are more concerned, just go to the outdoor service. So my family's just going to the outdoor service.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, okay. So we have a variety of responses to this lockdown thingy. and so the response of the church is very diversified by the sounds of it. You cater to different rooms. I think in Asia we almost have no choice. We just follow what the government says for our safety, and many times some of us feel very robbed.
Yeah.
That this virus has robbed us of friendships, connecting.
Yeah.
Some of us are even robbed the right to mourn when I know that some of us have lost loved ones to the virus, and no one can come to the funeral, and that's very, very painful. Um,
That's happened here too.
yes, I mean,
Yeah.
of course. So how would the church? I'm just trying to see, is there any wisdom you could shed light on for us that we might be tired of talking about the subject even, uh you know it might be just an overkill, um but maybe let me just veer a little bit more towards another need, which was about the racial tensions in where in America we read about the racial tensions that have been brought on. It's all mixed up with this mask thing, and it didn't help with the whatever happened with George Floyd. Um, I only want to bring this up because I know that many of our churches in Asia, some of us work on tribal grounds, and so some tribes don't mix with other tribes. What is your take on what's happening with the racial tension, and is there anything we can learn from that so that we can uh, live out the gospel life that Christ wants us to live, in your opinion?
Yeah. So many things here. On our question sheet, you do have some questions down farther that you sent me about the emotional and spiritual needs of the church.
Yes,
We
that
can
too.
circle back to that. You were starting to head there, and I do have some thoughts. But we can talk about the racial tension stuff for a minute too, like you just asked.
Unless you want to jump back to the emotional and needs of the church right now before we get to that, I think that's a better.
Sure. Okay. So anybody who's trying to make an outline here, I'm sorry. Just kind of start them, but we'll figure it out. Um, yeah, I mean, those questions do come in right now. You asked me as we prepared our questions, what are the emotional and spiritual needs of the church and believers at this time? And I jotted down 4 things, and
Mm,
these are the things that I feel called as a church staff member. I mean,
right.
I'm a pastor or even an elder. I'm an artist in residence, but it's at a
Yes.
church, and there's ministry connected to that. So in terms of ministering to people and in terms of sharing music, these 4 priorities for me. Number 1, for sure, at the top of the list is the Hebrew word shalom.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs shalom, and that's a very complex term, but it means so much more than just peace in the way that we think of it.
Yeah.
Shalom, as you all probably have heard or studied, just means well-being in every area of life, whether spiritually
Mm,
or emotionally or physically or mentally, that all would be well, and all would be well, and all manner of things would be well,
mm, mm,
to quote
mm,
that phrase. And that on all those levels, we would be reconciled to our neighbor, to
mm-hmm,
ourselves, and
mm.
ultimately, and most importantly, to God. That things are flowing the way they should, and all the ramifications of that are working themselves out. We could go on and on about that, but that's what we need, whether it's racial tension or disagreeing about virus or being separated or facing loss or sorrow.
Right.
So shalom sort of sums it up.
Yeah.
The second thing I jotted down was peace, of course, in the midst of this uncertainty and turmoil. It's okay to feel anxiety. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important, at least in some parts of Christianity, to make sure people know that they don't guilt themselves or feel shame for having cares. Jesus doesn't condemn a weak reed or a smoking flax who find
Right.
themselves burdened with care, but he does tell us where to take our cares. So we just keep turning back to a loving Father who's not surprised by this and who promises to give us peace beyond our understanding,
Yeah.
and to the Spirit who is like I prayed, our comforter. The Spirit
Yeah.
could be so many things to us: a teacher, a convictor, but a comforter is perhaps the most beautiful thing that the Holy Spirit could be to us. And so we have means for peace, and we know where to turn when we find that anxiety rising. And then we find peace, and then the anxiety will probably rise again. And that's okay, because we just keep going back, you know.
Absolutely.
The third thing is hope. Scripturally, we hope for the joy set before us. We know that there is a solution and a reward and an ultimate reconciliation and redemption of all things, that we look past our temporary affliction or suffering to for an eternal weight of glory. And I think that level of hope then trickles down all the way to like looking forward to when we don't have to be distanced anymore, or we don't live in fear of this virus, or just some kind of return to normal, you know. But normalcy will return, and I've had to remind myself and those around me of that many times. Music is not going to disappear.
Amen.
It kind of got silenced. I've told some of the people that I connect with, this is a fermata on a rest, but it's not a double bar line.
All right.
We're in the midst of a fermata, but we haven't hit the end. It's, you know, we haven't experienced a fermata like this before, and so it's tempting to feel like, uh-oh, the song is over. The song isn't over.
It's going on for so many measures. We think like, oh, I've lost count.
Yeah, right. It's the biggest fermata ever. But it will end, and the music will resume. Worship is not going to disappear.
No.
It feels
with
that
or
way
without
sometimes.
music, though, don't you think? With or without music, we're not quite used to it. We love to have worship with music, but
Yeah,
if
of course.
you have no choice, it still does continue. You're right.
Yeah, and music in worship and all of that is not just going to go away forever. Now, you know, it's a much longer time than we've ever had to do without. In so many ways, but it's not going to end. The church is not going to disappear. You know, like the capital C church.
Hallelujah. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
I wrote in my notes here, Aslan is still on the move. You know?
Yes.
It's fine.
Onward and upward.
Yeah. So I think a sense of hope, looking beyond our temporary affliction and recognizing the temporary nature of it. And then lastly, joy is what I and the people around me need. The joy of the Lord is our strength. That's such a beautiful phrase. And God has prepared good works for us to walk into, as my pastor is always saying. Not just in the sense of, oh, now we're going to do good things, but specifically, God has ordained the things that we will walk into. For me, one of those things is meeting with you all right now. That is a good work that God has ordained for me to walk into, and I've walked into it. He will lead us and use us to do exactly what he wants us to do. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That goes both ways, because, you know, I'm just thinking we're all thrilled to hear your heart. How often do we get to hear a composer's heart and of your stature, and yet you stand among us as brethren? And you know, somebody was commenting on the Facebook, like, it's eerily quiet in here. Why isn't anyone saying anything in the chat? And sometimes I wonder whether they just want to hear your heart. And wow, I love these 4 points of shalom, peace, hope, and joy. How do you actually flesh these 4 out in what you have done in these last few months? Because I hate to say this, but as a pastor, sometimes the pastors are so bewildered themselves that they need to hear the same message, like, shalom, yeah, man, I need it at every sector of church life because I'm freaking out right now. You know, pastors need all these things, and sometimes our pastors are so overwhelmed. They don't even, they're not leading us as intentionally as we wish, because they need ministry too. So what can we learn from you?
Yeah, most of what I've been doing is definitely leans more on the musical side, of course. So for me, one of the biggest joys of the pandemic was that I still got together with our 2 full-time church musicians to create broadcast videos of worship each week. So my buddies, Trevor and Jared, the 3 of us were together almost every single week. And sometimes we would have 1 or 2 other instrumentalists come in, and we kept our distance on the stage, you know, but we were able to do our thing. And what a privilege that was to be. I was every time I walked in there, I'm like, I'm one of the few people in this, I don't even know what state, country, like who's still
Oh,
getting to make music with people right
oh yeah.
now. And there was such an increased sense of urgency to it. Like, if we don't do this, there's not going to be anything for people. And so
Right.
it really just opened my eyes in a new way to the importance of what we do in providing music in worship. It felt much more urgent instead of like, okay, here we are again. It's another week. It's another service. What are the problems? What's going to go well? Hope this song works out. You know,
Right.
it got us
That
out of
sounds
all
the
that
same
stuff.
old, same old.
Yeah, I mean, we showed up like we got to encourage our people, you know, and our pastor is such an encourager to us, and his support of us each week was infectious, and then we're able to share that with others and encourage him in return. So really neat things that happened with being able to just share music with our church people, record music for them, both in worship services, and we did Tuesday night concerts for a while where we did some that were hymns, we did some that were serious, we did some that were not so serious, we did some that were
Oh, wow.
in people's garages, all sorts of crazy things. But all of it, our people were just so glad to like see us and, you know, the people they're used to seeing on Sundays and just hear music. It mattered a whole lot more. I've also just opened my doors a lot more to this is my office that you see behind me here. Most of the time I kind of hole up in here and do my thing, and I don't often do a lot of like Zoom meetings or connecting with people. I'll go see them in person and do artist in residence kind of things, but I don't really teach a lot of composition lessons or meet with choirs like this or whatever. And once this pandemic started, I just like threw all that aside, and I just like opened the curtains, so to speak, and said like, all right, let's meet with all the people, you know?
Yeah. Come on in.
So it was good for me, and I hope that it's been a blessing to other people too. I've made a lot of videos. You know, choirs ask me all the time, will you make us a little video just like greeting our choir and introducing this piece? And normally I just say like, if I start saying yes to one, it's just
No
way
way.
too much, and I just have
Yeah.
to draw a line. So I just don't do those. I'm really sorry, but best wishes to you. And the last 4 months, I've just like been trying to say yes. I've made more stupid little videos for more choirs.
Oh, wow,
Oh,
it's on your plate and your impact it's incredible. It's amazing, isn't it? Quite scary that one little that one little clip could go such a long way to encourage others then.
it really does. So I've tried to do those things. I've been recording piano solos for like accompanying virtual choirs, doing a video when people ask for it if I can. I've recorded just piano solos for people to use in their church broadcasts, just of me playing hymn arrangements or whatever for them to use as the offertory in their online webcast or something like that. I've recorded several things for my own church. Then on the publishing front, I've done a lot with just clarifying policies about what you can do with or without a license. You know, there's been tons of questions about what can we do with our podcast or our broadcast or whatever. And so trying to let people know what doors are open and how to get through them. There have been some sing-along parties of Jubilate Deo, which we did when I was there last year. There have been choirs that just like pressed play on the River Tree Singers audio of that, and then a whole choir that was going to perform it wherever. A lot of them even dressed up. They all wore their tuxes and they all got together on Zoom.
Fun.
They all muted their microphones so nobody could hear anybody else, and nobody even tried to line up with each other. But they all just sang their guts out, you know, singing their part along with the music. And then they, you know, just connected and conversed and fellowshipped at the end. And, you know, it's not like singing together, but it's better than not singing at all. So I've hosted a few of
and
those.
yet it's being together, isn't it? That meant much more. There's no end to musical excellence to it, but now's not the time. Now is doing things together, and the things that really matter. I must say that leather brown chair, someone was commenting, is so inviting that if I go to your house, that's where I want to sit first.
Hey, let me tell you, that thing reclines.
Say what?
That's a recliner. It kicks back.
Oh, So it goes all the way back.
Yeah.
Oh, what fun.
It's
Test the
good.
mechanism. Do-doom.
Yeah. I tend to just like take a nap in that probably.
And why not? Someone was asking actually, Richard says, what's the best way to rehearse given the current situation? You mentioned about us rehearsing with not really rehearsing. We can't hear each other, putting on mute, but just singing it out loud. But I think there's some of us here feel we're not ready for that yet, and we're trying to push the rehearsal audio as max as we to the max as we can. What are your thoughts on this?
Mm-hmm. Our choir at church, for example, is going to start meeting in a few weeks, I think. But it's only people who feel comfortable with it. So people who are at risk, you know, they're encouraged to please don't feel pressured. In fact, we're asking you, please don't, you know, put that burden on, put the risk on yourself, and don't put that responsibility on us. You know, if you're at risk in any way, just stay out of. Well, this isn't the time to be the hero or feel guilted. Please don't come. You know, but for people who do, I think we're going to rehearse outside. I had
outdoors.
I'm sorry.
Did you say outdoors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can find a place that has like a brick wall or just whatever, you know, any kind of solid wall or maybe an overhang, you get some acoustic reflections off that.
I
So
see.
if you have some places, yeah, you could be a little bit creative. I mean, if you just stand in the middle of a field somewhere, it's kind of hard to hear everybody.
Right.
But there might be ways. Of course, the more walls you have around you, the more you might be inhibiting airflow. And so please don't take what I said, you know, like this white American guy told me to do this and now my people got sick. Like, you know, you're going to have to make sure that you have ventilation and all that stuff and that your people are distanced and all that sort of thing. But with a reduced size choir, and then just see what you have available. See if there's a way that you might be able to stay distanced, stay safe.
Have we able to do anything online? I mean, were you able to do anything distance-wise with technology? Because that's where we are stuck at right now.
Yeah,
lagging time is frustrating.
No, there's a few things that have come out where you can try to overcome the whatever you call that, the lag, the latency. There's a few things that are hopeful for the future or whatever. There's some people were trying to get excited about it, but it was limited to, I don't know, 4 people or 10 people or something. Short answer, no. I just don't think there are ways to sync up online.
Right. Keep those questions coming, everyone out there. Because we will want to hear from you. I will give time for Dan to share about resources that he has, and he's got a few things, some music pieces to show us, new initiatives which are brilliant. So stay tuned, but keep your questions coming. Can we ask you questions about how do you compose right now? I mean, what materials, or how do you posture yourself to compose in a time where some of us actually have gone through very deep valley lows? Give us a window into your world, if you may, Dan.
Honestly, I have only written one new piece since the pandemic began.
Okay.
And I'll share it with you at the end of the session. I have it loaded up and ready to go.
That's not your usual number, right? You usually do a few at a time.
No, I had so many things that I was going to be writing. Some of them were commissions that got canceled. So I lost the funding and the deadline for them. And I write music best when everything is calm and all is right with the world, you know, and then I can just kind of leave all that behind and just focus on what I need to do. If there's like tension between people in my house or if there's some problem at church or with my publisher or whatever, I kind of have to just put out all those fires. And then once all that's good, I can make music. So with all this stuff that's been going on, it just hasn't felt like I could just sit down and make music. So that's part of the reason I spent so much time gardening, was because I felt like I'm not going to sit here and bang my head against the wall. I'm going to go do something profitable, you know?
Wow.
Um,
That's not true. Someone described it to me like, during this lockdown time, it's like having a house, a room full of your family members screaming over each other, but your boss is also in the room, your pastor's in the room, and everyone else you don't want to meet each other. They're all in there in that space. And that is terribly, terribly debilitating. It's very draining for
yeah,
many of us.
for sure.
So how did you get through that one composition then? I mean, how do you find that space of peace? Did you write in your garden?
No, I always write here. Again, like if I'm out on a trip, it's just too distracting. If I'm outside, it's too distracting. I just need to be where everything is totally normal and nothing else is going on, and then I can just kind of get where I need to go to focus on
Mm,
music. Um,
mm,
so yeah, the piece that I wrote is called Shalom, the word that we were
mm.
talking about earlier, and
Yeah,
it uses Christ's words, "Peace I give you, my peace I leave with you, not as this world gives. Do not be afraid."
yeah, yeah.
So it felt like something that needed to be said for other people's sake and for my own sake. It's
Mm,
equal parts of both. I wrote it for myself because I needed to hear it, and then I wrote it so that I could share what I needed to hear with others who I know need to hear it as well.
mm.
So it wasn't like I was just writing some, string quartet based on motivic cells or something. I wasn't geeking out
Yeah,
on academic stuff. It was kind of an exercise in speaking truth to myself and then providing that for others too. So it kind of spoke to the situation at hand.
right, right, right. Oh wow. Okay, okay. Then I'm just wondering whether do you think we need to go back to the racial tension thingy or not? We don't
Yeah,
really need to. But
yeah,
I want to hear if you feel strongly about that.
yeah. I don't have to go on long about it. Um,
Mm,
yeah, I mean, I live in America where there's this entrenched history of racism that is rooted in slavery. And
yeah.
I'm sure every country, every region, there's history, there's past, there's things that have to be dealt with and
Mm,
figured out and atoned for in whatever way, and old paradigms that need to change or whatever. So I don't know exactly how it translates to
mm,
Southeast
mm.
Asia, but at least in America, um, I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. who said Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock is the most segregated hour of the entire week because all the
Ooh,
white people
ouch.
had their church over here and all the black people had their church over there. And yeah, pools were segregated and restaurants were segregated, but there was nothing more segregated than church.
Mm,
And that is the exact opposite of what Christ's kingdom actually looks like.
right.
And
That's
we are
right.
profoundly saying the wrong thing if we just act like that's okay. Now, I
Mm,
realize that's a huge question, at least in America, again, about how do we accomplish racial reconciliation, and it's so much more than just do you have some black people in your white church or do you have some white people in your black church? That
that's
you haven't
surface.
you haven't proved anything just by
Right.
counting the number of people. It's so much more about the heart. So my wife has been such a leader on this front for years, long before George Floyd. She did a Be the Bridge group, it's called, here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Christian racial reconciliation curriculum, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
so meaningful. She did that, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So I mean, this has been going on for 150 years or something, or all the way back to 1600s. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, what did she do again? I don't understand.
It's called Be the Bridge. It's a curriculum that is distinctly Christian, and it walks you through understanding racism in America. And
Build a bridge.
it's called Be the Bridge,
Oh, be the bridge.
as
Wow.
in like
Okay.
you be the bridge for racial reconciliation.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah, it's really good. So this is all like old hat for her, but like everybody else is starting to get it. And she has really helped me see so much more. She was the one who led out on all this in our family. And I've just been like following along with her because it's been so good.
Wow.
So we're very passionate about seeing our church take a leadership role in understanding, in listening, in just trying to figure out the first steps to take to try to accomplish some good on these fronts. And I'm also very actively trying to get Beckenhorst, the publisher where I work, trying to get our corporate approaches to Black composers, or to composers of any color,
Right, right.
to feel welcome, to know that whatever kind of music they're writing, we would like to hear and consider. To I mean, the thing is, we've always felt like, oh, our doors are open, and people should know that. You know, we don't care whether you're Black or Asian or Islander or whatever. We don't, you know, we just want good music. But that's not enough. It's not enough for us to just be like, oh, our doors are open and people know it. No, they don't know it. And we've communicated the wrong thing unwittingly for a long time. So I reached out to a bunch of Black composers here in America, coming from all different backgrounds, and just said, here's where I'm coming from. I want to do better. Can you tell me what it's been like for you as a composer and being Black?
Wow.
And tell me where your struggles have been, and tell me, how could Beckenhorst be a better ally to you? What could we be doing that would enable you and people of your color or other people of color to feel welcome, to know that you have a place at this table, and to thrive and succeed? How can we use whatever resources and structures we have to equip and enable? And I got many, many hours worth of earfuls on that, and learned so much just from listening. It was
and the more you listen, your heart breaks even more. But hats off to you, Dan. I mean, yes, it's one thing to say, yeah, my doors are open, why didn't you walk in? And it's another thing to say, come right into my kitchen. You know, let me show you my kitchen. What's your kitchen like?
Yeah,
and
I have a chair for you right here. Could you please sit in my chair? Here's the good chair. Let me stand. Why don't you sit here? You know?
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that. And I know, you know, I mean, coming from in Asia, where many of us we struggle with this Asian thinking that we are always lower than other people, and so sometimes we will never ask questions on Facebook or Zoom. Get it, folks? Why? Because we think that we have nothing to say, and we dare not open our mouths until somebody of a certain position or somebody who, that's why we appreciate the Lord Jesus himself. He came down and he took us from where we are. And that's like what you're doing with your composers of color. And that tapestry that you bring to it's God's tapestry. That's so rich. I just so appreciate that. That's such a wow moment for me. Just some questions here. Someone wanted to know, how do you go through, what process do you go through in order to write music, to prep yourself, inspired? We can deal with that later. The other one is, I've listened to some of your compositions where you incorporated different languages. What process do you go through in learning these languages and putting them in your compositions? That would be interesting to jump into now that we're talking. Oh, well, they're not quite the same thing, isn't it? But you're just welcoming people from all walks of life who are composers into the publishing firm, and to give them a voice.
Sure.
But do you mind if we answer this question, because I think it's valid? What process do you go through to learn languages?
When I set different languages that I don't know, I can't learn the whole language, of course. It's not like I can get out Duolingo and learn the whole thing. But I just immerse myself in the particular text that I'm setting. And I always try to work with a native speaker of that language, to try to get the inflections right, and the accents and the rise and fall and what the vowels sound like. And I record them saying it over and over, to try to just listen and get it in my head and memorize the sound of how they say it, not just the sound of how I read it, you know. And then I have to try to find music in that one way or another. So yeah, it doesn't mean that I have to learn the language, but I have to just immerse myself in that text and how that text sounds and flows and what means what, to make sure that I've gotten it right. When I set the Mandarin Chinese exam, for example, 3 of Jubilate Deo, I got with a native Mandarin speaker in my town here. And I think we met for 2 hours just on that tiny little chunk of text talking about, I mean, that was one of the harder ones because of the tonal, but I was trying to speak like dipping tones, like I'm no good at dipping tones. But yeah, just trying to get a feel for that. So I can do honor to that language and that culture by how I set the music and not kind of mess it up. It's a risk. I've had people write me and say, like the vowels aren't quite right on this, or the way you suggested we pronounce that isn't actually how we say it. And, with those people, I just let them know that I tried very hard to do the best I could on that. But you also have to remember that in any language, we sing it differently than we speak it. And there are places where I purposely change. So, I'll sing it this, like in the Hebrew, for instance, in movement 2, there were vowels that just weren't going to sing well if we did it exactly that way. So I've incorporated like, let's modify this vowel so it'll sing. There are things like that involved. So it's tricky, but it's really rewarding if people of that language and that culture like that music. So when I came to Singapore, and especially that third movement, heard it sung so that's like a career highlight for me is coming to Asia and having native speakers and other Southeast Asians, sing that and be thrilled with it. I was like, oh no, are they going to throw things at me?
No, we felt like you wore our clothes in many ways. And
well, I did that night, and I still have that great vest that I got. Remember, it's from that little region of India where there's tons of Christians. I don't know the name of it.
It's Nagaland, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Northeast India.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. Right. Yay.
Hanging in my closet. I haven't worn it here yet, but it's amazing.
Yeah, you're gonna stick out, which I think has its moments. Can we talk about beauty, because that was such a beautiful time for us to actually hear in different languages. We heard Arabic, we heard Jewish, we've heard Chinese. There was such a colorful tapestry. The question that came in here is that, a musician who is an artist who makes arts, we deal with beauty, and other people praise the beauty that come from us. But sometimes people look at us who play beautifully, but they do not look to God. So I think it's looking at, they're being wowed at the product that we're producing, and the focus is not on God. So does Dr. Dan Forrest struggle with this as a composer in God's hand to offer beauty to the world?
Oh, sure.
Good
yeah.
question.
I mean, any thoughtful or sensitive Christian is gonna think that way, whatever their field is. Is there a risk that when I do the very best I can and work heartily as unto the Lord with all my might, that someone is just going to praise my work and not see God in it? And it feels like, maybe I haven't really communicated what I needed to communicate or what was most important, because they just kind of stopped there. I mean, I wrestled with that a lot, especially early on, but several things have helped me on that front. One is there's this quote that's attributed to Martin Luther, and I don't think it was actually Luther who said it, but it sounds like something he would have said, and people listen more if you say that Luther said it. So, so here's a Luther quote. He said something like, he said something like, the job of a Christian shoemaker is not to put little crosses on all his shoes, but to make the very best shoes that he can for God's glory, so that people see that his love for God and his love for his neighbor.
Fantastic.
And so, like with my music, I don't necessarily have to put little crosses on all of it, or it's not my job to ensure that people see the cross through my music in every single piece and every single time. Francis Schaeffer said, you don't judge an artist by one piece of theirs, you judge them by the body of their work. That's an important factor here too. So I believe that if I am doing my very best to reflect God in the beauty that I create, then I can happily leave it to him to make sure that people see him through it, and that the Spirit is at work, and that my labor will not be in vain, and that God's word won't return void, and all that sort of thing.
No. Yeah.
Ultimately, that's God's work and not mine. Now, I think we do have to ask ourselves, like, am I like missing opportunities? Am I hiding my candle under a bushel? You know,
Right,
um,
right.
so that's a question that we always have to ask ourselves. So I'm always struggling with that. Yeah, like did I take the right opportunity to speak when I had the opportunity to speak? I try to make sure that I do. If I'm in a secular environment somewhere and people ask me like, well, how does your faith play into this? I don't just like try to give some little answer and throw it under the rug. I'm like, oh,
No.
let's talk about that. You know, I try to be very open. Even on my website, you know, I have that "What I Believe" page because I'm just trying to be very clear and not hide my light under a bushel. But at the same time, I don't feel like if I've only shown people beauty, then it was in vain. I don't think that is in vain. I think all of my work, if it's done heartily, is unto the Lord, reflects
Yeah.
Him and glorifies Him. And I just seek to steward what I'm given and try to steward well. But I
Right,
don't burden myself with the responsibility for the results of it. If
right.
that makes, it's a tricky balance, and I hope I'm being balanced in how I'm
Oh
presenting.
yeah. Oh yeah, sometimes it's easier to do it when there are words and texts. Then that makes it very clear of your intention. But sometimes with just music alone, what's demanded of us is not to put words and text where it's not called for, but to show forth Christ like in the crafting of a good shoe,
Yeah.
without making it look hideous, um, by making it distasteful. So it is a real balance that we all struggle with. I remember the time that you have had. So how far do you go into impacting the world with what you do as a composer? I'm just thinking some of our conductors out there who are watching this, and oh, it's past 10 o'clock, and I'm just reminded that I'm so afraid that so many of us actually thought that the Selah webinar began at 10. I'm so sorry if you just joined us. Well, welcome to the Selah webinar. It started an hour ago. So hi, you're late. I'm sorry. I'm so apologetic about this, but I'm glad you joined us. Don't go away. It's been a wonderful discussion so far. Coming back to you, Dan. So yeah, so about beauty, words, and serving Christ in everything that you do. Some of us here are conductors. We don't have jobs, but whatever we conduct, my question to you is how do you assess, do I take this assignment? Not that we have much choice nowadays. There are no jobs coming in, but in normal times, again, how do you balance that in decision making of, do I accept this, do I not accept that?
Um, just in terms of like scheduling and not over. I'm not sure if I missed some context to that question. You just
Not
how to over
scheduling,
schedule.
but in representing Christ in what you do.
I see. So
Um,
you're asking, are there certain things that I would say like, since I'm a Christian, I think I better not accept that invitation?
yeah.
I see.
Should you do that? And then when do you say, no, I'm not going to cross this line? Because some of our conductors out there are involved in secular choirs. Some of us are
Sure.
involved in international competitions
Yeah.
that are organized by the government. And not all that is bad. But that's that balance we want to keep, and we want to learn from your example.
Yeah. So in terms of balancing like Christian and non-Christian, I just take the opportunities that come. I uh, I don't really worry about the ratio of those things, and as it works out, I spend probably fairly equal amounts of time doing both. I really don't think of the two as much different. I go and try to be the same person and represent the same God and make the very best music that I can, whatever the situation is.
So it's being consistent, isn't it? And it's the full body of work that will represent your message. And I
Yeah.
think we hear that. I'm just wondering, Dan, do you want to take this time to introduce to us certain resources, share new pieces with us? We have some questions here that we could answer after you do that. Folks, keep your questions coming in on Facebook and on Zoom. There's one question here while Dan prepares to show us the next thing. Is observed that choral music in many churches is disappearing because most churches tend to want a different kind of worship, which is usually with bands. I do realize a person who loves choral music that I cannot impose on other churches to have choral music. What are your thoughts? And do you not see the need for choral music and the balance between praise and worship music and choral music? Do you
Boy,
want to address that one? The
sure.
question
That's
that.
a quick 30-second answer. um, yeah, it really depends on the situation, the context, where people are coming from, what's going to serve those people best. I've seen situations where people fought for choir in a situation where it might have been better to just focus on the end and not the means. Even though I love choir and think it's important and want to see it continue overall, not every church has to have a choir. Every church has to have worship. They need the sacraments, the ordinances, however you all think of that. They need congregational singing. They need the preaching of the word. They need to offer themselves and their gifts and their resources back to God. You know, there's essentials, and a choir is not on that level.
Right.
So there are times when I think we have to check ourselves. I know this is heresy to say to a bunch of musicians, but there are times when we need to say, okay, what's the main thing here? And is this a situation where it's worth pushing for, where it's going to really benefit people? Or am I just kind of forcing my own thing onto these people in a way that's not serving them or loving them well? So with that being said, then there are other places where I feel like choir is very much worth hanging on to and keeping around. And I have a whole like hour lecture I can give about why I think choir is important and worth it and worth trying to preserve in worship and all that kind of thing. I mean, the 30-second version of that, I guess, is just because of what a choir is able to do in terms of prepared music sung together.
Yes.
As opposed to improvised music that's not rehearsed, not prepared, or sung by individuals. Or the main thing is that you have a group of people all working together, picturing the body of Christ, lining everything up, unifying everything about themselves to sing as one. And that precedent runs all the way into the Old Testament. You know, this isn't a new thing. There's thousands of years of this being a part of worship in one way or another. I think it can add so much that's important. So I try to check myself and just, you know, ask myself, am I doing this for my own sake, or am I really doing this for the church's sake? But there's definitely a time to say, hey, here are some benefits of this. Could we get this going? And I don't think that like the whole world is just losing choirs. I hear people in America say that too, like, oh man, these churches just keep going to bands. They don't want to do choir anymore. No, there's just as many churches, I think, at least the ones that talk to me, who are saying like, oh, we want to get a choir going. You know, we haven't had it for so long and we really miss it. And our people are asking for it. And it takes work and it takes budget and investment of time and resources and gifted people who can make all that happen. But I think it's more an ebb and flow than it is like everything just falling down.
Also, the choir is just a medium, and I would sometimes wonder whether we get confused between the kind of medium. It's not about contemporary music, is it? It's whether can the choir be well used singing a traditional set piece, or a piece that's written for choir with a contemporary feel. I think there's no law against that. You've done some beautiful work yourself, taking a wonderful traditional and foundational piece in our repertoire, not only repertoire, but it sings our belief. And then you did it and arranged it in such a way that it will impact the choir who sings it. So I really don't think it's about whether is it contemporary or traditional. That's not the issue here. It's how is the choir used. I would love to actually see a contemporary band, for example, be used in a very traditional setting, quite the opposite way around. Also, I don't see what's wrong with that. I think that can work out. Someone was saying something very interesting here. There will always be people who see only what's beauty at the musical level, regardless of what we do. When that happens, no matter then how we will respond to it. So that is, So that was a comment someone here was making. Then we have about 20 minutes or so left. We would really love to hear your resources. Could you share with us everything there?
Yeah, by all means. Let me share my screen here. There you go. Are you seeing the screen with my
Yes.
cursor moving around?
Your Facebook.
Yeah, okay, good. That's the
So
last.
Back and Forth
Here's the
Press
first tab.
is what you're involved with.
Yeah, so
You're the editor there, right? Sorry.
yeah, I'm editor and innovator and licensing overseer and jack of all trades
Cool.
there. But it's all stuff I love and it's all worthwhile, and I'm eager to innovate and try to move forward. So yeah, I work with Craig Courtney, who did this for the last, I don't know, 30 years or so, and is nearing retirement age, but we're still working together, doing all these things and having a good time doing it. So the website I'm on is right here, Beckenhorst Press. You can easily Google that and find it on your own time later if you want to peruse any of these things. If you want to find anything that I'm about to talk about in the next few minutes, you can just go to Beckenhorst and then come right here in the search bar. Just type in the title of what you need and it should pop right up. Most of our products are available in print, which would, for example, on this piece, it would look like that. It's just a plain cover. But then on the
Dan, can you make that a bit larger for us in the screen, because it looks a bit squished?
Yes, I'm sorry. Does that help?
A little bit more. For those of us beyond 50, that's a challenge. Voila. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. I have a pretty high res monitor, so it's probably just shrinking down on yours. Yeah, so this version is the print version, but then it always says for digital download, click here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can click there and it will take you to the version that has this red band across it that says digital download. And that's always a PDF that will be emailed to you as a download. A link will come to you for a download. So anything that you want to order in Southeast Asia, that's your best way to do it. Is use these digital downloads. So a few recent products that we've been working on that I'm happy to share. This is my SAB choir collection. So this is for 3-part choir. I've had requests for these for years and years and years, and I've been too busy writing so many other things. And then last year at the Keith and Kristen Getty Sing Conference, which was in Nashville, Tennessee here, with like 12,000 people there. Just this huge thing, and all these big name people were there. And I got to do a session on choirs. And I even got to perform on their stage for one of their main services or whatever. And they had a conference choir there with like 600 people in it. So there's this beautiful way that there's not conflict there. I'm looking over here because I've got your picture over here. I'm sorry. Hi, looking at you again.
It's fine.
There's just so much interest, and nobody really cares about music style there. It's not like, oh, that was to this or that was to that. People just really care about worshiping well. And that's the way it ought to be. So whether it's Andrew Peterson singing something or some new Matt Merker song or a new Keith and Kristen Getty hymn, or like a conference choir, or I led a session on choral repertoire that we couldn't even fit all the people in the room. There was that many people interested in choir, even at like a contemporary hymnody kind of setting. So just really encouraging. But one of the big takeaways there was how many people came to us and said, we want to get a choir going again in our church, but all your music is too hard, which is painfully true because I don't tend to write easy things. So this has 8 of my pieces that have been most popular and one new one, Great Is Thy Faithfulness.
You write a variety of things, Dan. You don't just write for a double SATB. Now you're producing SAB.
Yeah, so this is some of the most accessible, easiest church music I've written. And it's a collection of 8 of those. So it's like 8 octavos for $10.95 US, which is a really good deal. Those would be a good deal. Yeah. It'd be more like $20 if they were being bought individually. So especially, like, we did this all before the pandemic hit, but this is turning out to be really useful for smaller choirs because, you know, half the choir needs to stay home and be safe, or only half the choir can sing at a time because of social distancing and how many can fit in the loft or whatever. So this is actually just, I praise the Lord that he moved us to get this going before all this hit, because now this has been really helpful for choirs of reduced size for whatever reason. So there is that. It's called Small But Mighty. The acorns are on there because, right, the small acorn grows into the mighty oak tree. Little imagery going on there. And then I do have accompaniment tracks for that as well that I recorded. So if you even don't have a pianist around or a piano around, I'm back on my first tab here. There's a link for that on this page. Oops, sorry.
Oh, wow.
So you can easily get to that, and that looks like this. And there is a digital download option here, as well as a CD option, but you all would want to just go with the download.
So that's an MP3 thingy?
Yeah, so with the purchase of this, you get an email with links to 8 MP3s that you can download.
Superb.
I don't know how many of your choirs have gotten into the virtual choir thing, but we do have some resources for that as well.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so a lot of choirs, of course, are doing virtual choirs, but a lot of church choirs find that difficult because you need a conductor, you need an accompanist, and then you can't rehearse very well. So I'm going to click on the And Can It Be one here.
This is the iconic And Can It Be? Yay!
Yes, that's the one. So this kit includes an instruction sheet, first of all, that tells you everything to do. It includes a link to a singer instructions page that puts everything in one place for your singers that we're providing here. That page also has a playlist of rehearsal tracks. And there's a little glimpse of the rehearsal track right here.
Wow.
So you hear a little click track in the background. That's the clap that syncs everything up at the beginning. And you'll hear that click going the whole time.
Okay.
So one of the most difficult things is keeping everybody together with these virtual choirs. And if you have a conductor, then you got people who are trying to read their part that they haven't rehearsed enough probably, and they're trying to watch a conductor and it's just all off. So that little click track helps immensely because then you have it in your ear the whole time. But we purposely chose a click that doesn't bleed through headphones very well. So you just get that little in your ears that doesn't show up out here in your singing.
Right.
So I didn't get into this video. These are part dominant, so you'll hear the altos louder than the sopranos here.
Sure. And also, so you have a choice of SATB, so you get a good idea. Right.
So all 4 parts are there, and then there's a balanced voices one if you want to just rehearse with everybody equal. And then there are audio files of those same things for people who want to rehearse just with their phone out on a run or with earbuds or whatever and not be at their computer watching a video. Those can be freely shared with a choir. There's the video of me accompanying there that you saw. We provide the raw file of that so it can be used within the virtual choir if you want me accompanying. Or you can certainly have your own pianist play an accompaniment track along with that click that you heard. Yes. And it'll work just fine either way you want to do it. And then same with the conductor video as well. Or if you want the sound of me playing, but you don't want this strange American guy in your video, then you can use the audio of it and you don't have to see me. You can just hear the playing and it'll work. And of course, that does not have.
I wonder why they wouldn't want to see you.
I might stick out a little. Who knows? Yeah. So that doesn't have the click in it. That's not a rehearsal track anymore. That's just clean audio that you can mix in with your virtual choir as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yes, and this is all at Beckenhorst Press website. Go check it out, everyone.
Actually, right under. And under
Sorry,
products, on products here, the very
the
first thing
product
underneath there is virtual choir
virtual
kits. Yeah,
kits.
there's 4 of them.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant. We've got 7 minutes left, and I'm mindful of the time, and it's really bedtime for you. Someone is dying to ask this question, and
sure.
Richard here, Dan, if I may ask, he says, what do you expect when you listen to choir performing your compositions? Do you expect them to follow the markings that you have provided? In a good way, when you listen to a choir performing your song, were there things that you heard differently that was beautiful to you? And what was it that caught your attention?
Yeah, so for the performance type stuff, I mark the things that I care the most about. So if there's a marking in the score, it's probably because I wanted it. If there's something there that is not clear, that's where I'm very happy to leave room for interpretation. Once in a while, somebody disobeys a marking that I have, and I say, oh, that's a good idea. I wish I had thought of that. Most of the time, when people disobey my markings, I say, I wish they would have looked at what I wrote. So
Okay, okay, that's fair. Okay, yeah. I suppose it's so wonderful to be able to get an idea what the composer thinks, because he's still around.
at the moment, yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your piano, instrumental, and vocal solo products? When some choirs are not
Yeah,
singing,
by all means.
that week. Yeah, please.
And I'll be very quick about it. I have tabs for these. So this is Songs for the Journey. This is a new vocal collection that Craig Courtney and I just put out. We adapted 5 of each of our choral anthems for vocal solo. You can always find that under products and then go down right here to vocal. It's listed under there. It's also in this sidebar. This is available in medium voice, and then there's an orangey one that's high voice, and there's a grayish green one that's low voice. The ranges for those are listed here so that you'll know which one to buy. All the titles are listed here so you can see what you're getting. There's previews of the first 2 pages of each piece so you can see what they are. And then right here, with friends, I actually recorded all 10 of these like demos. So all 10 pieces are being performed in this YouTube playlist that's right on this page. So you can hear the way I play them and the way that singers that I'm with are singing them for good models. And then if you want accompaniment tracks, I did record all of those as well, and there's a link for those here. So yeah, if your choir's not singing, at least you can do some vocal solo things. And then same with instrumental products here. If you go under products way down to the bottom under instrumental works, we do have, these have been around for a couple of years, instrumental worship. There's 3 collections, each of which is written idiomatically for different instruments. So those already exist, and there's 3 digital download ones. And then we have a new volume 2 of that that's coming out in just a few weeks. So just keep your eye out for that. Be a new collection of those. And then lastly, our newest pieces that we put out right before the pandemic hit are right here under products, new issues, choral. If you click on that, it will take you to a list of all those things. Here's my Psalm 121 setting. I lift my eyes to the hills. There's some Christmas music here, some fall type things, and then some general worship pieces as well. So we did put out a whole bunch of new pieces right before all this hit. So once this all ends, those will still be there waiting.
Okay. Anything else you want to show us before I invite you to share with us? Did you want to talk about my songs for the journey you have, right?
Yeah, that was this vocal collection.
Okay. Do you want to tell us also about your Beck and Horse online Facebook live reading session?
Yeah, that's my last tab here, my Facebook tab that was up. Hey everybody, here's my Facebook. So there's a group here, and I will copy this over into the chat.
Okay. For those of us who are on Facebook, we can find you there.
I just pasted it in the Zoom chat, and maybe Noemi or whoever can share that around to Facebook. We've had a little trouble sharing this group, but this is an online reading session that we're doing next Tuesday. It's 5:00 p.m. Tuesday here, which means it would be 5:00 a.m. Wednesday.
A.M. Is that all right? We'll wake with the dawn.
Yeah, so PM here, AM there. You'd have to be up very early to be a part of it. But hey, if you're a choral geek and you really want to geek out on new choral music, we'll have some fun. There's some music giveaways, there's some video premieres, and there's a discount code that we're offering on the Beckenhorst website during that session too to try to draw people in. So
Okay, it's all shared. What you've just posted. That's great. Well, thank you. What a rich resource. Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. I'm thinking, shall we end with you sharing shalom, and then if I may, we could pray, and then we will end our session, hopefully slightly just over the time. Do you have anything else you want to tell us, Dan, that you're burning to, that we'd just love to hear from you?
no, I think I've said all the things I was dying to say. The last thing I want to do is share Christ's peace to you, which is what this
Amen.
does.
Thank you, and also
So
to you.
let me turn on the screen sharing once more, and I will play some audio. Are you seeing Shalom now?
Yes.
Good. All right, so this is my finale file. You all get a little look into my studio here. And I'm going to play back the MIDI file of it. I'm recording this tomorrow, actually, with a couple friends. But
So it's not out yet.
No, not at all. We're doing a vocal duet of it tomorrow just to get something ready for a couple of other premieres I need to do with it. And then we'll record it with a choir of 12 for a recording session in mid-August, as long as we're allowed to meet. But for now, yeah, I just have the dumb MIDI playback. So
are you able to stretch the score a bit more, because we are seeing your digital mock-up thingy there? Ah, yes, voila! If you can, that'd be great.
Sure. And is it big enough for you to read from top to bottom?
It doesn't matter. I think I want to hear it. It
Yeah.
could be bigger if you're allowed. You're having 3 pages. Yeah, anything with a 2-page would be great. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Okay, I'm just going to move this around a little bit as we go then, so that you can follow along.
Yes, please. Thank you, sir.
You can read the text now, right?
Yes, yes,
okay.
Perfectly.
That's the important part. All right, here you go.
Can you crank up the volume a little bit more, Dan?
That's all I've got. It starts soft.
Shalom. Good. Let me close us with a word of prayer. Gracious Father, we thank you for this benediction over us, where you declare your shalom peace to be with us. And thank you for calming our hurried hearts, calming us with a reminder of our purpose here as your servants, to glorify you and to serve your people. Father, we just lift up Dan into your hands, that in all the ministry that's ahead of him, whether in the home, whether in the church or in the community or throughout the world, that you continue to give him increase, because you have spoken shalom into his heart. And from within there shall flow out rivers of great joy, because the source is from you. And may that also be said of all of us here, Lord, as we come to you and say, God, we are truly nothing, but you are everything. So proclaim your peace upon us, that the name of Christ be lifted in our midst. And so, Father, may the peace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. We are just so grateful that we could spend this time together. You have been a real blessing to all of us. And thank you for laying your heart out there for us. We are so grateful for your presence with us here. Thank you.
No, it's
And
my
so on
privilege
that
to
note,
be with you all again. Thank you
I-
so much.
thank you. We will wait for a time for all this to be over, and we would love to have you and Eddie and the family over to this part of the world. But till then, please send them our love and greetings to your church. So I will end the session here. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye, and have a great day. God bless you. Thank you.